All right, welcome back. So far, we've followed sound to the outer and the middle ear. We've seen how it's collected and amplified. But now we're heading into the inner ear, to a truly incredible structure called the cochlea. And trust me, this is where the real magic happens.
So you've got this tiny, fluid-filled spiral in your head that, looks just like a snail shell. But what is actually going on in there? Well, get ready, because we're about to take a deep dive, a microscopic journey to see how a simple physical vibration becomes the entire world of sound that you hear.
Okay, so let's get our bearings. Right here, tucked away deep inside your temporal bone, is the cochlea. And its job is one of the most important things your body does. It's called transduction. It's just a fancy word for converting one type of energy into another. And in this case, it's taking those mechanical vibrations from the middle ear and turning them into electrical signals the brain can actually understand.
Now, you might think of it as just a microphone, right? But it's so much more than that. As this quote says, the cochlea isn't just a passive converter. It is an incredibly sophisticated little processor. It doesn't just pass a signal along. No, it actively analyzes and sharpens the sound before your brain even gets a whiff of it. And that's what we're going to unpack.
So first things first, let's take a look at the hardware. We're going to start by exploring the physical layout of this amazing coiled-up organ.
So if we could magically unroll the cochlea and slice it open, this is kind of what we'd see. It's basically a long tube, about 3.5 centimeters, that's split into 3 parallel, fluid-filled chambers. You've got the scala vestibuli up top, the scala media in the middle, and the scala tympani down at the bottom.
And check this out. The fluid in these chambers isn't all the same. The top and bottom ones are filled with something called paralymph. But that middle chamber, the scala media, has this really unique fluid called endolymph. Now, here's the kicker. This endolymph has a positive electrical charge of about plus 80 millivolts. You can think of it as the battery that powers our hearing. It's absolutely essential.
And hey, here's a quick mythbuster for you. It's kind of fun to imagine that when a sound comes in, the cochlea just unrolls like one of those party horns, right? Fun image, but nope, that's not what happens at all. This thing is a solid, bony structure.
Okay, let's zoom in even further, right into that middle chamber, the scala media. There's this flexible membrane called the basilar membrane, and sitting right on top of it is this super complex structure, the organ of Corti. And this is where we find the real stars of the show, the sensory cells of hearing, the hair cells.
Now, there are 2 totally different types of hair cells and have very different jobs. We've got just a single row of about 3,500 inner hair cells. Their only job is transduction, turning that physical wiggle into an electrical signal for the brain. But then you've got up to 5 rows of outer hair cells, about 12,000 of them. And these guys are like the mechanics. They actually change the physical properties of the cochlea to fine-tune what we hear. It's a process called the cochlear amplifier, and it's what gives our hearing its incredible sensitivity. What an amazing division of labor, right?
Okay, so we've got all these incredible parts, but how do they all work together? Well, with that anatomy in mind, we can now dig into the cochlea's main gig, being a biological frequency analyzer. And the key player here is that basilar membrane, the thing the organ of Corti sits on. You can think of it like a prism, but for sound. It takes a complex sound, like my voice or a piece of music, and it breaks it all down into its individual frequencies, from the low rumbles to the high-pitched squeaks.
Probably the best way to get this is with an analogy. So imagine a whole row of springs. On one end, they're super stiff, so they're going to vibrate really fast. That's a high frequency. On the other end, they're really loose and floppy, so they vibrate slowly, a low frequency. Now, if you shake that whole setup, only the springs that are tuned to that specific shaking speed are really going to move a lot. And that is exactly how the basilar membrane works. It's brilliant.
So let's connect that analogy back to the real thing. The basilar membrane is just like that row of springs. At the base, right where sound enters the cochlea, it's narrow and it's stiff. That's perfect for responding to high frequencies. But as you travel down toward the other end, the apex, it gets wider and much more flexible, making it sensitive to those low frequencies.
And what you end up with is this beautiful frequency map, laid out perfectly along the spiral of the cochlea. You see? High frequencies like 16,000 hertz are processed right there at the base. And as we move deeper into the spiral towards the apex, the frequencies get lower and lower, all the way down to the deepest bass notes. This organization has a name. It's called tonotopy, and it is absolutely fundamental to how we perceive sound.
So, we know the cochlea sorts frequencies. Now let's see it in action. Let's actually visualize how a sound wave moves through this whole system.
You see, when a sound hits the cochlea, it doesn't just shake the entire basilar membrane all at once. Nope. Instead, it starts a ripple of vibration known as a traveling wave. And this wave, always moves in one direction, from the stiff base toward the flexible apex.
Let's watch it happen. A sound wave hits, and boom! A ripple of vibration starts its journey right at the base of the membrane. And as this wave travels along, it starts to grow, building up in size, until it finds that one single spot on the membrane that is perfectly tuned to its frequency. And right there, it hits its absolute maximum peak of vibration.
And here's the cool part. Just after it hits that peak, the wave's energy just dies out. It diminishes incredibly fast, and that sharp drop-off is what allows the system to be so precise in pinpointing the exact frequency of that sound.
So here's the big takeaway. The location of that peak tells the brain everything it needs to know about the pitch of the sound. It's that simple. A high-frequency sound, like 2000 Hz, peaks really close to the base, but a low-frequency sound, like 200 Hz, travels way farther down the membrane before it peaks near the apex. The cochlea has physically sorted the sound. It has used location as a code for frequency.
So, we've done it. We've followed the sound wave, we've seen how the cochlea masterfully breaks it down and finds its exact frequency by making a peak of vibration at a specific spot. But that leaves us with one last, massive question. The sound is sorted, sure, but it's still just a physical vibration, so how in the world do those little inner hair cells turn this physical movement into an electrical message for the brain? Well, that is exactly where we'll pick things up next time.